Welcome to today's webinar, everyone. Byron White here with Matt Grant. Matt, welcome.
Thank you for welcoming me, Byron White. Matt Grant here.
That was a smooth introduction. People didn't actually see the hoist of the hook that I had to bring you onto the stage, but you're here now, Matt. Glad to have you.
No, here I am. Happy to be here. Really excited to talk about this. I have to say, as someone who's worked at Freelance Writers, and at least, you know, for me, on occasion was able to land what felt like a big gig, I'm really happy to share what I learned from my experiences.
Will you have 1 minute?
Was that a little better? That was a little better,
yes,
right?
That was a little better. That was almost something you had planned for, so thanks for that. Well, just so everybody understands the smiles and laughter that Matt and I will share with you today. Matt and I have worked together for a few years at Aquent. Aquent acquired the first company that I had ever started called WriterAccess, which was a graphic arts placement agency, and did a great job of rolling the company into theirs at the time. And we went through a lot of exciting things together. Both Matt and I were on the management team back in those days, and really helped Aquent do some great things and part of an exciting company. At the time, Matt was in charge of MacTemps University. Remember those days, Matt?
I did. Yes. So doing training for what was then MacTemps. But gosh, Byron, I was realizing it's like 17 years ago. It's a long time, bro.
It is. And not only that, but if you look at this picture here of myself and you, like, are these pictures like when we were right out of college or something? I do not have as much hair as that. And you're now, I don't know, you're a little bit more gray than this picture, aren't you, Matt?
Well, actually, no, that picture was just taken this past summer. You can see some gray in the sideburns.
Okay.
If I, my hair proper is not that gray. But like I have a beard now, which is pretty much all gray.
Gotcha. Well, I
know
noticed
this is fascinating to our listener.
It is indeed. I notice your glasses are a little dirty there as well. You can see the light coming through them, which, you know, for a professor like yourself makes a lot of sense. You're just fumbling your glasses.
Exactly. I'm so in my head. I don't know what's going on in the outside world.
Well, what's really made it interesting for me to bring Matt into this is, Matt, you pounded pavement after you left Aquent for some time, and were a freelance, was an outstanding freelance writer working with some great clients, and it was a pleasure to continue chatting with you through that journey. So you come to the table with both client side experience working in-house now as the Director of Content Strategy, freelance experience, training experience. You're just the perfect guy for this webinar, man.
Yeah, because now I know, right, I've worked as a freelance, I even do some freelance writing still on the side, but yeah, now I'm more in the business of hiring writers, and Aquent certainly also places writers, so I feel like I really bring the whole package to this.
It's full package, no question about it. So let's dive in today. Matt and I are going to go through a presentation today that's sort of a joint effort combo deal, if you will, and a couple of ground rules as we go through this. Number one, we're both going to take some opportunity to talk with you about the slides, each slide that we put together for you today. I'll talk first and shed some light from my perspective, followed by Matt on that particular slide that will chime in. So we're excited about that, and we wanted to talk first about the market, as you can see, what's happening in the market with regards to professional writers. Next, we're going to dive into some tools that relate to both some methodology and technology that we think you need to learn about and understand, and at least make sure that you're deploying some ideas we have for you to stand out from the crowd. And we think we have some magic for you on how to win the big gigs. And a lot of what we're really talking about is you, the individual freelance writer, that has an opportunity to control your fate by out pitching pitching gigs directly with clients and working directly with clients. You know, today's presentation isn't so much about, tips and advice on how to make it in a platform like WriterAccess necessarily. We wanted to think bigger and think of you as an individual professional writer to really guide you with your career in that type of direction. You will get a few tips, of course, with things that will apply to the platform, over at WriterAccess and other platforms you may be members of, but that's the general gist of what today's presentation is about. So without further ado, let's talk about the market. It is changing. It is changing radically, and it has changed. I think for the most part, we are all caught up in, we're deeply entrenched in the content marketing revolution, certainly, that's in full force. And, I like always going back to that understanding of the definition of content marketing so people can really understand it. And of course, I like to say the following, and I've said it 100 times in these 50 webinars that I've had in the last 3 or 4 years. But forward-thinking companies are starting to think like old-school publishers, gathering ideas, developing stories, and publishing a steady stream of content that engages their readers and keeps them coming back for more. And that's good news for writers, and it's even good news for writers in cities like Boston with a lot of publishers in this area. There were a lot of layoffs, particularly around 2008 and onward, and you think the whole publishing industry is being disrupted, and an earthquake has happened, and writers are unemployed all over the place, but that's not really true. What's happening is companies are hiring writers in-house to manage the content workflow and keep a steady stream of content published. And now, as we all know, content marketing is about 33% of the marketing spend, which is huge. So there's great opportunity. I think it's an exciting time to be a writer in this marketplace, and those are my thoughts. Matt, agree with that? Is content marketing super hot, and are we seeing perhaps a surge of positive things happen?
Yes. Well, it's interesting because I think, I'm trying to remember years back, I want to say it's almost 4 or 5 years ago, when C.C. Chapman and Ann Handley wrote their book, Content Rules, about content marketing. And certainly it's gotten to the point now, if you look even the work Joe Pulizzi is doing with Content Marketing World and stuff like that. I mean, these are conferences, thousands of people will go to them. So content is definitely hot. And I think but there are several challenges, and I'll also be addressing them later in the presentation. There's challenges both for companies, and that's the fact that if you're spending 33% more in your budget on content, that means you got to produce content. There's this expectation that content's going to be out there, but there's lots of different types of content, and it's almost like, I would say there's almost like 2 marketplaces. There's a marketplace for where companies do, like you were saying, chugging the content marketing Kool-Aid, where companies want to produce a lot of content, particularly with a focus on SEO and things like that. And then there's still a marketplace that existed before. I mean, content marketing isn't new. I think Joe Pulizzi talks about, I think, Jell-O and these other companies that in the 1890s were already offering what we would call content marketing. But there is continuing and has always been a market for high value content that either goes directly to consumers or is integrated directly into the sales cycle. And in part, when we talk about getting big gigs, one channel that people really need to be considering is this, going after the high value piece.
Sounds good. Let's move on. And that was the entire presentation in one burst of a minute. Thank you, Matt.
Hey. so we fill in the details. We're filling.
Yes, perfect. We'll land the plane slowly here.
Yes.
So one of the things that I think is critical to understand about content marketing is the fact that, in my opinion, it's a team sport. There are a lot of moving parts. And what I mean by that is when you look at the whole content workflow, content planning, creation, optimization, distribution, testing, performance analysis, it's a lot of people, it's a lot of time. Some companies certainly are doing it on their own, and writers, of course, need to embrace these different stages and are often now asked to get involved in these different stages. Content planning is now coming, I think, into its prime. About 3 or 4 years ago, when we were a full-service content marketing agency under the Idea Launch brand, we were doing some early-stage planning that involved a lot of heavy-duty work of keyword research, keyword silo development, analysis of the competition, studying what they're doing, and putting it down in metrics. And the point there was we were trying to do a lot of this work on the planning stage. But now it's analytics is half of the equation. The big debate, of course, is this, is analytics going to win out, or is the creation and the content and the writers and the creative people going to win out? There seems to be these two different separate departments, much like years ago we had a sales department and a marketing department. We kind of have, within the marketing department now, we have the analytics department and the creative department. So it's even getting more challenging now. But the real point is, to find your spot in this content marketing workflow and to really nail your spot and hone the skills with your particular spot. Matt, do you agree that it is a team sport and there are a lot of moving parts here? What's your take on all of this?
There's no way that I could disagree with what you just said. No, it's absolutely a team sport, and I think you've hit on all the different components of it. And even you could even add another layer, which is this content strategy component. So I think, that what happens is companies, they have their goals, their specific financial goals usually, and then they have their overarching business strategy. How are we going to do that? And then the smart companies now are putting some time into, okay, given what content could do, how can content function as a lever for us? And then once you've determined that, okay, we're going to use our content for these 3 specific goals, then comes in the planning piece, the creation piece, optimization, etc., as you're describing, I think.
Spot on. The channels are getting more and more interesting and more complex. And really what this means is that, I'm going to flip over to this slide for a second.
Please.
What this means for all of us in this wonderful world of writing and content marketing, content everything, is we've got some serious new challenges that we need to think through and focus on. The distribution, the type of channels that we have is diverse, from article portals down to websites and everything in between. The different types of assets that we can write and create is much more diverse, you could argue, now than it was before, say, 5 or 10 years ago. And these assets are starting to show promise and results. And that's really the most exciting part of things. And so we need to sort out what is going to be the focus. What type of assets do you create as a writer? What are you good at creating? And these are very different disciplines that I think you could argue are starting to converge a little bit. We're seeing some great, email writers that really know how to nail the call to action and the intrigue and the tease. With old direct mail skills. We're seeing, A/B testing, using some fundamental methodology on conversion and conversion enhancement. We're seeing personas be developed now, not just for big, huge campaigns like ad campaigns years ago, but we're seeing personas developed for the entire customer base and prospect customer base. So the skill sets, I think, are coming together, converging, yet the number of different assets that you have to create is expanding. So it's kind of a funky time. Would you agree with Matt?
Dude, it's never been funkier. The time has never been fun. It's all about the funk. I think what you're showing here is like, again, why are we even talking in this webinar? It's because companies, we already saw the budget numbers, but when you look at this, it's not like most companies are like, oh, well, from a content asset standpoint, I'm just going to have blog posts. I'm not going to do anything else. They know that they're not saying that at all. They see a list like this, they want everything on it. And that's that's why there's a great opportunity for writers. Even while I do think for certain types of content, there's a downward pressure price-wise, for other types of content, there's never been a time when, I mean, they are becoming increasingly valuable. And I think, too, what you're saying, that there are, and it's weird, these little bits of specialization that can happen here. Like, I think about, like HubSpot talks about having content, which they really mean like blog posts and stuff that they're pushing through social channels, versus content offers. And that's the stuff, their ebooks and whatnot, that they're going to gate and they're going to try to get email addresses and stuff off of. With the blog post, it's all about sharing, and that's where something like this, even specializing in titles, you know, and what titles are going to pop, tracking that becomes a whole task in and of itself. As not, I mean, especially as soon as you talk about testing and experimentation, you have to have a bunch of stuff already in the pipeline to test and experiment with. You can't test with one thing. You have to have more. Funky.
Funky. Let's. The problem we have, however, is that all this market noise really going out there, all this diversity, all of these assets that have created multiple channel approach, it is kind of creating both opportunity and chaos for the freelance writers on the line right now trying to figure this all out. Yeah. And I'm going to pop to this next slide so everyone can read it, but the net of it is I think there are a couple of kind of clients that emerge from this spaghetti mess out there in the marketplace. You certainly have clients that have, you know, no plan or strategy. They don't have buy-in from upper management yet. They're still kicking the tires a little bit. They don't know what they want or how to produce it, and they are extremely hard to work with, period, the end. They will waste your time. You will put together proposals that will go nowhere. You will educate and acclimate them. Even worse, you'll probably have a champion that drinks the Kool-Aid that you're dealing with on a one-to-one basis, but upper management has not bought in. So your proposals go nowhere, and they keep fishing and trying to find the answers. And, you know, thankfully for companies like, you know, HubSpot and WriterAccess and, you know, many others, Content Marketing Institute, Marketing Sherpa, you know, we're working very hard to show people, you know, how it works and why it works and that it works. And eventually, though, those upper managements will buy in and budgets will be allocated to the right type of assets that we're talking about here. But it's bad news if you're stuck with your universe of prospect customers that are in this sort of category of like, yikes, they're just not going anywhere. And there are, of course, the opposite extreme. There are amazing clients out there that I think these words written here really explain it perfectly. They have a sense of urgency. In other words, they're ready to do something now. You know, they're clear on what they want, which is remarkable. And you know, they really know exactly what the objective is and how you are going to help them. And what goals you're going to have, and they respect your ability to deliver. Those are the rare and amazing clients that you need to find. And I would try to have you think about that. If there's one thing you learned today, there is a fork in the road where you need to make decisions and possibly fire some of your prospect customers and clients out there that are not really going to be worth your continued effort of time in educating and acclimating them on the way things work in the marketplace. Matt, agree with that? You going to fire some clients?
Well, I do. I think it's interesting what you were saying because I have a couple thoughts on it. On the one hand, yeah, I don't think it can be, if you're trying to position yourself and putting yourself in a standpoint where you have to sell the idea of content marketing to a client, it's going to be a long, hard slog, and I would recommend you get out of it because really, it's just as we started out, like right now, it's almost taken as a given by many companies that they have to do content marketing. There's not a question about whether they should do it or not. They all kind of know they should be doing it. What happens, though, is they don't know how to do it. or they don't know where to start, or usually a big problem is, and this is of course where the opportunity is for everyone, they can't find people to actually execute on it. So as soon as they find someone who can execute, you're like gold to them. But I did want to say at least two other ways to think about this. So on the one hand, right, you can have clients that have no content plan or strategy. You can have other clients who have a lot of clarity. I would say the sweet spot might be clients that are kind of in the middle, in the sense that you don't have to sell them on content marketing. They know they need to do it, but they're not really sure what it's going to do, what it's going to do for them, and they might have a long runway trying to figure that out. So, for example, I'll just tell one story I had. I worked for a company that did offshore software development, so a very hardcore B2B company, and you could tell it was part their senior VP of marketing really believed in content marketing, and he had budget for it. In fact, he had budget for the whole year for it, to have a blog, which they'd never had before. So I was able to, at a conference, meet this guy, ask him what his main pain point is. He told me it's content. I said, oh, what a coincidence. I can actually produce content. It did take from the time things started, from that conversation to when I actually launched their blog for them and spent a year writing it before handing it off to another writer, because I just was moving on to other stuff. The blog is still going now 3 years later. This was something where they are a B2B company. They have a lot of expertise about things. They want to get it out there. We're playing the white paper game and everything like that. So there wasn't as much pressure on the blog to perform right out of the starting gate, also because the senior VP understood you can't go from having a blog one day, not having one, and then the next day you have one and suddenly things are going to happen. But there is, especially in the B2B space, can be a little more wiggle room where companies are trying to figure things out and they want to get an oar in the water. And this can become an opportunity that can even go on for, like I said, for even a year or longer. So there's that. I would just say think about companies in the middle. They're trying to get to content marketing. They're not quite sure how to do it. They're willing to experiment and actually try things out. So it's that. Oh, and there was one. Byron, can I say one other thing?
Sure, please.
Sure. So the other thought I had was this, because I definitely did have clients who I thought they could be doing a lot more with content on their site. And once again, they thought maybe they could, they just weren't sure what they were doing. I'm thinking of one client in particular. There was a consultancy that did economic analyses of local building projects. And there's a lot of interesting expertise they had within their team. And I was never able to get a content gig with them, but I was able to get a site audit and a content recommendation. They paid me, in a sense, to put together a proposal. So they paid me to analyze content on their site, what it was doing, do the competitor analysis, and then make some recommendations about how they could change things on their site and even scale, if you wanted to make a few changes, that'll cost this. So once again, even for sometimes, just because everyone is hearing this content marketing piece out there, you might actually be able to make some money just on this front end piece. Even if it doesn't turn into a real writing gig, you can get real money to actually do an analysis and put together a proposal for them. Just something to keep in mind.
There's a good piece coming up that will be helpful for people that want to do just that. But I did like your comment. There are tweeners. I like calling them tweeners, right, between these two extremes of these examples. But clearly, it's time to make decisions. The efficiency of your time and who you spend on prospect customers is a big deal when it comes to, winning the big gigs. You need more time to win those big gigs to do things like test drives and audits and, other things like that you could even get paid for as you're trying to win these big gigs. Point well said. All right, let's dive into some tools. So, you need to upgrade your tool chest if you haven't already, and really, quickly arrive at the cool tools out there that are at your disposal to manage content. You've got a whole bunch of curation tools that are very interesting. You've got some research tools that will help you do audits and analysis of your clients and their competitors' websites. You've got performance tools that will spit out reports for you and start tracking the performance, and you've got all kinds of workflow tools. You know, I'm curious, Matt, of all of these tools you see on here, are you familiar with all of them? And have you used, you know, any of them, all of them? There's so many. It's just crazy.
No, it's beyond crazy, especially when I look through this. I mean, I've used a teeny fraction of them. Curata, I have worked with before. Storify, I don't. That's the Twitter. You can build stories using Twitter posts with Storify, right?
Yep.
Yep. HubSpot certainly I've used. I've seen presentations by folks from SEO Mod Brandfish, Fishkin. I've seen that stuff. Most of this looks like it's a whole world here to investigate. SpyFu I've also heard good things about, but man, there's a lot there, Byron.
It's heavy. It's heavy. It's very heavy.
It's overwhelming, actually.
It is, but it's good to know that, you know, that some of the listeners on the line are not looking at this, and, you know, a master like you of content marketing is not like looking over this like, yeah, I've used every single one of these, and some are good, some are bad. You know, it's more like, hey, there's a lot of great things out there. You need to study them all, learn them all, and try to put them to work. I think no matter what. I broke these into 4 groups because you need to have at least 1 or 2 in each of these big groups that you're using as your go-to. And I think that's what most freelance writers are really doing out there right now. Mm-hmm. You know, you need to curate content like it's your livelihood, particularly for particular clients. You know, you need to be, you know, searching and scouring the web for the stories within their industries that are being told and published, and you need to track those and you know, get with the program and understanding what's going on out there. The research tools are paramount for, you know, SEO optimization, you know, understanding the competition. You know, obviously I'm very biased with SpyFu because Mike Roberts is a pal of mine, but their tool in a matter of seconds allows anybody to go in and say, who are the competitors, how are their competitors performing, what keywords are the competitors you know, doing well with organically, what keywords are their competitors buying pay-per-click keywords for. I mean, in like 5 or 10 minutes, you can prepare for a meeting and really be in tune with some pretty interesting analysis of what's happening, not only on a prospect customer's website, but on their competitors' sites. And that just puts you in a position, once again, to win these big deals. You have to know what's going on out there. You have to do the research prior to that. And research isn't going and checking out their website and reading a few of their blog posts. No, research is digging deeply into the performance of not only their site, but the competitor sites on the web. Performance tools are a little bit more hip when you have existing customers in your portfolio and you're trying to make sure that their content is spot on, that it's being read. You know, Google Analytics should probably be on this list as well. I pulled here more tools you can use, but you know, SpyFu recon reports. You could have reports sent to you and or your clients once a month, tracking the winners and the losers, and you know, picking up on the good news from each of the websites that you're writing content for. You know, Moz just really revamped their whole technology platform. And Moz is, first of all, SEO Moz changed their name to Moz, but now it's Moz Analytics as one of their big tools and features. They're trying to, you know, create that steady stream of analysis for you in a more pure SaaS model. HubSpot has some great built-in tools. The bottom line is you need weekly or monthly reports that will track what's going on. And, you know, selfish plug here for WriterAccess. We actually built in analytics to the WriterAccess platform, which is free of charge for all of our customers. You know, and they can go in and actually, you know, get some track up to 50 keywords with their domain name. So that's kind of cool. And then workflow tools. Compose, outrageously expensive, but I hear good things about it. And once again, we dropped in a free content planner that allows you to post your ideas. You need to be checking copyscape on your work, before you deliver it to customers. There are huge penalties that customers have these days. So, a lot of stuff going on. I guess I'll go to the next if that's okay. Matt, make sense?
Go for it. Go for
All right.
it.
So, thanks. So you also sort of need to, start removing the guesswork just with creating content. Like we talked a lot about all these performance tools and research tools and workflow tools, but there's one tool that I think that you're going to need to wrap your head around, A, because it's free, B, because it's a total white label solution. We created this for a lot of the agencies that we work with. The net of it is it's called the Creative Brief Wizard. And I think one of the most difficult challenges that you as a writer have with your customers in creating great content is understanding what they want. And obviously in putting through hundreds and thousands of orders through the WriterAccess platform, working with very intense customers that have specs and requirements that are beyond belief, frankly, we learned over the years to perfect the creative brief and to put it in a format that allows you to quickly get answers from your clients in this little one-page brief. This is great for any writer out there that wants to use this as a template, if nothing else, even if you don't want to use the actual technology. Learning how to to ask the right questions and dig at the target audience and get under the skin of the target audience with some data at your fingertips. Check out this Creative Brief Wizard. I'm wondering, Matt, do you have like a creative brief when you work with customers? Do you have a formatted way that you learn what they want and what style they want and the personas, and how do you do that?
Well, Byron, you'd think that I would. No, I mean, partly it was trying to, drilling down with people. Usually it would end up having to be in some form thrown back over to them in terms of a statement of work. So, okay, based on our conversations, this is what I'm going to do for you. These are the topics I'm going to hit. This is the length of the post I'm going to be writing for you and things like that. So I think I'm a big, even though I didn't always use them, and sometimes to my cost, I'm a big fan of the creative brief, and I think it's really critical, especially to get it in writing, and that's what I like about having, and this is a totally unpaid plug, folks. I'm just saying that having a tool like this, I think, is incredibly valuable, particularly getting it in writing, up front, so you have something to go back to, because I don't find it always, it can happen with longer form pieces, like if you're writing a blog, like a white paper or something like that. But even in fairly short things, maybe you're writing letters for companies or something like that, or helping them write emails that they're going to be sharing with their sales force, it can be, it's like the shorter it is, the more fraught it can be in terms of did you get it right or not. And having something to, when you're going back and forth with a client about, because they're unhappy because you didn't, somehow what you wrote wasn't exactly what they were envisioning, having a common document like this can be really critical in working things out with your client and saying, okay, well, remember you said this, so that's why I did that. Has things changed since the creative was created? Was that not exactly the goal? A lot of times, too, and frankly, clients will change what they're looking for based on what you show them. So sometimes they'll be like, yeah, the creative brief was totally good. Everyone signed off on it. And then you produce a thing, and then they see it, and they're like, oh, no, that's not what I wanted. And now it's good if you keep getting paid for every step, because then you say, fine, let's work this out. It can be challenging when they, oh, no, you just gave me the wrong thing, write something else. But I'm a fan of the creative brief, and I have not used the creative brief wizard, but I would defend to the death anyone's right to use it.
Well said, creatively as well. Perfect. So let's jump over here to the last of the tools section, and that is LinkedIn. So I'm not sure about you, Matt, but when we receive applicants at WriterAccess, we instantly and immediately go check them out. And checking them out is a quick and easy and painless process of diving into their LinkedIn account to see what their professional rapport looks like, and clearly LinkedIn is the choice of destination for professionals to showcase their savvy and their experience and their history, and even more importantly, their reviews and their endorsements, right? So it's just easy. And if you don't have a LinkedIn profile that's professionally set up, take a number, but step to the end of the line, please, because it is just not acceptable for anyone really professionally, in my humble opinion, unless you have some bone to pick with LinkedIn or their management team or their company philosophies or something, which I would love to hear. But it's time to step it up, particularly reviews and recommendations. That's what we're looking at here at WriterAccess. I'm sure that's what you're looking at, Matt. Do you agree with that? I mean, do you put as much as weight on LinkedIn as I do?
I would say, in people's online presence, people are going to check you out. And I would say certainly LinkedIn should look good. It's definitely possible for people who are very talented to have neglected their LinkedIn profile and have not thought of it as the marketing piece that it can really serve as. What I would, though, frankly, if I were hiring writers, I want to see samples of their work. So in addition to LinkedIn profile, I believe you need to have a blog, you need to have a portfolio site, you need to have some place where I can see what you've written. And in fact, frankly, if you have a blog, I'd love to see that this is something you actually care about and are doing already. So LinkedIn, it's easy to neglect. You definitely do pay attention to it. I also strongly believe you need to show that you're committed to writing on the web, because by actually doing it.
And what's your take on on Facebook? Let's just throw that in the mix, Matt. Facebook's a playground that we can relax a bit on, or do we?
Yes. Well, I think, I do believe, it's weird because for me, and social, and especially on the writing side of things, what I consider really public is my LinkedIn profile, my Twitter feed, and my personal blog, my personal site. Like those are the business. That's the business end of things. Facebook, obviously, there is business that happens there. It's a little weirder since it's not as open to search. Just from Google search standpoint. I also find it just mixing business. You have to be careful what you put on Facebook. So that's obviously, you're not going to put pictures of you doing illicit activities in illicit circumstances. Or even putting really radical political views. Anything you share on Facebook can be shared anywhere. So be careful. I absolutely agree with that. But I know different people use Facebook for different reasons. I don't totally dig it when people I follow or am connected with as friends tend to be using Facebook for biz dev. I tend to actually take them out of my feed, so I don't see it. I'll be honest with you.
Got it. Do you, when you make a post on Facebook, are you at all cognizant that there may be somebody looking at you from a professional perspective? I'm just curious of how you think about Facebook.
I do. Partly because when I got into Facebook, when they first opened it up to people who were no longer .edu, I was working here at Aquin, and suddenly I had a lot of friends because everyone was connecting with each other. So I know there are people in my Facebook audience who are their work colleagues, and I am also connected to people who are potential clients on Facebook. So I am, even though I can have a kind of edgy sense of humor, as you know, and Byron, I do self-censor on Facebook because I know, just it's part of the web, so it's potentially open to the whole world. But I already know there are people in my network on Facebook who are professional connections, and I have to take that into account when I'm using it.
Good stuff. Thanks for the censorship.
Really, everyone thanks me for my self-censorship. But the magic, this is the part I was really, and this is the exciting part of the presentation.
All right. Wow. Appreciate the build-up, too. You're awesome. All right. Let's take a look first at your profile. And particularly, let's hyper-focus on the headshot. Now, we could reel back to your magnificent. Let's just go back there for kicks. Look at this gorgeous headshot from Matt over here. Now, clearly, professional, smile, happy, positive energy, glasses need cleaning. Yes, we talked about that. But really, people, it's critical, don't you think, Matt? I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but some people just are convinced that an image that's not professional, that's maybe shot in the backyard with the kids running around. I mean, maybe there's nothing against that if it's on Facebook, but your reputation, your work, in my opinion, is a clear reflection of your profile image. Matt, agree, disagree?
I think, again, I feel like sadly sometimes people can undercut themselves by not having a professional headshot. There's things, again, people can be talented people and they just represent themselves poorly. I do think at this stage of the game, you really do need to have a real headshot, though oddly enough, as I'm saying this on LinkedIn, I think the headshot I used there is one that I took using Photo Booth. But there's no kids in the background, and I did a sepia tone, so it looks not arty, but it doesn't look inappropriate. Facebook, having a picture where...
What about LinkedIn? What about LinkedIn?
Did I say Facebook?
You said Facebook.
Pardon me, yes. No, I meant LinkedIn. My LinkedIn profile, I have not used the very handsome headshot professionally taken that I got last summer. As it turned out, for free, I was at a conference and it was an offer to attendees. They would do a headshot for you right there. It looks great, I think.
It does.
So you can get inexpensive headshots. Going pro, long story short, go pro, I think.
GoPro, please, thank you. GoPro, please.
But don't use the GoPro in your car while you're driving around. Go to a professional photographer is what I'm saying.
Thanks for the clarification.
Yeah. Not
Not only that, Matt, but one thing to point out on all of this is when you're marketing yourselves in a platform like WriterAccess, your image says way more than 1,000 words of that you could potentially create for a customer. Yeah. Here's why. You're being judged and viewed side by side. And on the first, when a customer uses, say, advanced search, all they really have to go by is your image, your headshot, right? It's you versus all the competitors in the marketplace. Headshot and a little bit of copy explaining who you are, where you're from, what your star level is, maybe a very brief description, a sentence and a half of your work. It's just remarkable to me that people don't take the time to to get a professional image done of themselves.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do, but all I can tell you is you're hurting yourself, you're hurting your work,
yeah.
And if you're looking at the big bucks, remember the people on this presentation want to know how to understand and close big deals, $10,000 and up gigs, professional image, professional LinkedIn account, critical elements. Can't stress it enough. And I could talk. I almost feel like I should talk, which I won't, for another 10 or 15 minutes about this because it's just so aggravating to me. And maybe I'm too passionate about it, but you've really got to step it up. And I apologize if I'm going overboard right here. But it does define who you are. Okay. Wait, should we go back and should we talk about it a couple more minutes?
No,
all right,
no.
Maybe not.
I think we've finished that topic.
Thank you, Matt. All right. Next on board, performance, really. Performance is something that you need to get in tune with. And performance is hard to measure. I get that. a lot of the work done, for example, in the WriterAccess platform, you as a writer are not going to have the opportunity to see some of the many ways that that content could be performing for a customer. That's the weakness of a platform like WriterAccess. Of course, stay tuned is all I can tell you. But the net of it is, at least understand how your content could be tracked and could be measured. And here's just a short list of a few things that I've talked about quite often in the many presentations I've done like this. Diving into Google Analytics and looking at the actual performance of your content and how riveting it is, how many return visitors, what the bounce rate is, all things you should be looking at. Furthermore, you were asked probably to to optimize particular assets for keywords. Well, guess what? You can go do a search at Google and see if your assets that you created for that customer pop up. Or you can take your 50 keywords that you want to focus on WriterAccess and get access to that information if all things go well in the perfect world. You need to get in tune with these types of data. And minimally, even if you don't have access to this data and your customer is not giving you their access, you should be talking with your customer. Hey, how did those last 10 blog posts did I perform? Or I've been working with you for 3 months now creating content. Is your traffic up? How's about time on page? Are your bounce rates down? What influence is that blog having on your sales? By asking these questions alone, you're putting yourselves in a position to deepen your relationships with your customer. And you're showing that you want to be held accountable and responsible and you care about performance. That is the name of the game. That's what the high-end professional writers are doing out there. They're digging deeply into the metrics and the analytics when they can, when the time is right. Matt, thoughts on that?
My only thought is that you do need to think about it in terms of marketing. So every time you ask these questions, as Byron was saying, those answers you get become part of your story that you can tell for prospective clients. Every client engagement should end with some kind of story about, I came in, they wanted this, I did this, this was the result. And you can, a lot of times, someone has to tell you what the result was because it may be sort of opaque.
A really good point. The performance and the results become your story. Bottom line. All right. So the pitch, time to muscle up your rates, by working on your power pitch. And, the bottom line is that no one really wants to be sold to these days. And that's bad news for guys like me because I'm a salesperson at heart. But what it really means is that I have to bake the cake a little bit differently with how I pitch business, how, from the WriterAccess perspective, how we go out into a Fortune 500 company and try to pitch the business on, hey, we've got a pool of writers we can pitch. We've got great technology. We've got analytics built in, all these great things. It still is a pitch, and you need to be very careful about the pitch. And one of the things I've learned over the years is it's not so much the ingredients of all the things you're doing and how amazing you are and all of these one-liners you come up with. It's really how you bake the cake. And that comes down to something pretty simple that you can read about on this slide, and that is, in my opinion, how you're understanding the whole content marketing topic and process. And how you're customizing it for each of the clients that you're working with. And so you're going into a client and you're there to assess. It's the classic rules of, stop talking and selling and start listening to the wants and needs of your customers. I have commonly referred to this as the Socratic approach, which, Matt, you might remember from my whole Socratic approach that I brought out to the marketplace. Oh, Matt, I thought you had some funny tunes playing in the background. I thought that was going to be really interesting to get some. Jeez. Thank you.
But what I wanted to The one thing I
But
wanted
yeah,
to say,
what's your thought on that? So the pitch, and I'm suggesting here, tailor make the pitch. Go in, use your Socratic techniques, find out what the situation is before you start prescribing a solution and blabbing about how great you are, right? So that's the critical element. Go ahead.
No, I would definitely say no one wants to hear you blab about how great you are. But I do think there's a couple things to think about, and I'm just conscious of time in case we don't get to some of the later slides. But first of all, what you're charging for your services. Like when we talk about marketing, they talk about the 4 Ps. And one of the Ps, of course, is there's product, but there's also price. And when you charge for your services, it telegraphs and sends a clear message about how much you value your services. And let me just give you a very recent example. Someone asked me what I charged for doing freelance editing, and I said $75 an hour, since I haven't actually done it in several years. I wasn't really thinking about what I would charge. And he said too low. And so I bumped it up to something significantly higher. But it's important to realize that for certain clients who have if you want to go after the kind of the big bucks, I think about it, is you have to think about exactly what Byron's saying. What role in the sales process is your content going to be serving? If it's top of the funnel SEO copy, where it's really about volume and keywords and even though Google's trying to fight against that in many ways, then it's not going to be very expensive. I mean, you're not going to be able to charge a lot because a lot of people don't see that as inherently valuable. Like individual blog posts, they see 100 blog posts as valuable or 1,000 blog posts, but one's not. But whereas if you're writing a white paper that's very detailed and is going to lead to, or it's supposed to generate leads on deals that are $200,000 deals, well, suddenly that white paper seems very, very valuable. Or if it's the one piece of sales collateral that a salesperson is going to put in the hands of a prospect, this is something you're asking clients to look at this. You're not usually doing that with your 100 blog posts a month or 200 or whatever you're trying to do. So you have to remember that the client, especially depending on the deal, if the deal's in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, they want to spend not significant amount of money, but they want to spend more money on that because they feel like, well, I should be spending real money on something that's going to get me $200,000. So I just think when you're pitching and thinking about the rates you charge, remember that that's marketing as well. And when the more money you charge, the more money you ask for, really, the more valuable you're saying you believe your own services are.
Spot on. The question is the answer. I have said that so many times in my career, and we won't dwell on it now, but the good news is I have some really cool questions that I put together for everyone today, and here they are. And so, I think when you approach your clients and you're again trying to build your pitch up and you're focusing on their needs and their wants, you need to ask some really good questions. And I gave you a great list that everyone will get a copy of that will enable us to move on to the next slide. So I want to not ask Matt any question on that slide because we have a few more. And I know you want to expand on a few of these, Matt. So I want to give you some more time. But great writers are really, really hard to find, and I think that is something that that I want Matt to dive a little bit deeper into. I would argue that actually they're really easy to find. Just go to WriterAccess, but that's my pitch on behalf of all of the freelancers that might be listening in from FreelanceX.
Yeah,
But I think it works in your favor if you're a really good writer. So Matt, go ahead and expand upon that.
I think I'm just saying this as someone who's trying to hire writers currently. But also, for example, I met a guy at a dinner the other night, and he works for a engineering company that produces engineering software, and he really needs a writer. And specifically, though, he wants a writer with mechanical engineering background. And he's having a really hard time finding that. So that's what I mean. on some level, especially just finding writers itself can be challenging. Finding writers that you don't have to handhold through everything. Now, sometimes you bring a new writer in, if they're going to be writing for you for a long time, there's going to be a ramp up, and they're going to have to learn your style and your business and stuff like that. So it's not always fair to expect that they're going to knock the ball out of the park with the first thing they write. But certainly if you do that, it can be helpful. And certainly when the clients that turned into my biggest clients, it was because when they first brought me in on things, I was able to do it. They didn't have to revise it. They didn't have to edit it. And I got it in on time for them. And that became the basis of building out a business, at, $1 billion company. So first of all, because writers are hard to find, people are willing to pay a premium and once they find them. And they'll make you, part of that premium though can come with just, you're the person I'm going to have writing for me now for years. Individual pieces might not be, maybe in the hundreds of bucks, but if you do 100 of them, suddenly you're in the thousands. Well, even if you just do 10. But also having specific knowledge in a certain area, functional area, is also something that can be really key. Now, again, you can't specialize in everything, so part of it has to be, like Byron was even saying at the top, figuring out what you feel like when you're talking about where do you fit in this team, the content marketing team. What is your specialty, and really honing in on that so that then you can be more targeted in terms of the clients and things like that you talk to. But if you have knowledge, that is your leverage, and if you're a good writer, there are two things. The interesting thing I found is, sometimes you'll be able to produce stuff for them, and that's great. But even just being a good writer can often mean you're a good editor. And a lot of times companies have content assets that are just crappy, and they will pay you decent sums to actually fix the poorly written things that actually have the technical detail that you might not yourself have.
Mm-hmm. Spot on once again.
I'm just killing it.
There's lots of spots going on.
But also this idea of the big companies have big needs. This is the other thing what I was thinking about in terms of how do you get the big gigs. That these companies, like you'll be surprised that basically any company that has a lot of products, each one of those products is going to have a whole host of content needs around them. And what I found is if you can kind of get your foot in the door working on one of the products, it ends up opening up a lot of other opportunities because every other product is going to have the same amount of kind of content needs. So that's why I say when you get your first thing that you can do for a company, then you put your biz dev hat on. You start asking for referrals within the company. Who else? I'm sure this isn't the only company. These aren't the only people who have a blog that they built around their product, or these aren't the only ones who are trying to create 2-page product pieces about what they're doing. How do I get involved in that? And that it can lead to, frankly, full-time work.
Do you think that there's a particular strategy, Matt, to going after big companies? I mean, they're harder to get into. They're harder to find the names of. You know, what do you think the right tactic and strategy is?
I think a good tactic, and frankly what worked for me, was going to marketing conferences. And I focus on B2B marketing because I do think you can get a little more money for your content if you go in the B2B route than if you're going B2C. But that's just my experience. Going to conferences that marketers attend. Marketing Plus has their B2B marketing forum. Even HubSpot has their inbound thing. I saw the Social Media Marketing World just happened in San Diego. But where the marketers congregate, you need to meet these people. You're not going to be able to cold call into, I don't know, Amgen or something and be able to get people. You need to try to meet people face to face. I'm a very strong believer of that. So getting out, going to social media breakfast, going to anything you can where you might meet marketers, I think that's the best strategy.
Have you ever been to a conference where it was a waste of time, or do you feel like most conferences you go to or most social engagements, you tend to meet at least somebody that could get on your mailing list and potentially become a customer?
I mean, you know me, Byron. I'm actually a pretty outgoing person. I talk to When I'm sitting at lunch, I talk to the people next to me. When I see some, if I'm at a booth, I start talking to people. I mean,
Yeah.
so I definitely been to conferences where I would say, no, I didn't realize revenue necessarily from attending the conference. But, I mean, frankly, I'm just at the same time, I have one conference I went to, it was basically a year and a half's worth of work came out of just that one. So I think it's just constantly building your network and getting out there. And certainly getting out there on the web. Another friend of mine who he does a lot of like Facebook marketing and stuff like that for nonprofits. He's used Twitter. He has something like 60,000 Twitter followers, and he's been super active on Twitter. Has been a huge way that he got out there. And so he gets a lot of inbound stuff from doing that. But that's what I say. And I know we're getting to the end here, but this is just what I was saying earlier. If you want to make more money, write things that clients value more. So there's a whole value chain when you think about the funnel. There's top of the funnel and bottom of the funnel. The closer you get to the bottom of the funnel, which is where the money comes out, the more valuable clients are going to view the work that you're doing. And that's why I recommend here, well, there's two things that they might value. One is that, so a white paper that's really tied to lead gen, and they've actually set up a gate around it or things like that. I've been involved in doing podcasts and video and other things like that. There's a lot of things that companies will value more. If it's part of a, if it's part of a $50,000 project, they're willing to pay a few $1,000s to get the copyright. But also helping C-level execs, because one of the other pieces of this content world is that there, a lot of more C-level individuals are getting into the writing game, and they're not necessarily, sometimes they have great ideas, but they need help writing. So if you can help people higher up the value chain within the company, you can also get bigger money.
Hire an agent to market your skill.
Yeah. Yeah.
An agent like WriterAccess / Aquent?
Right. Sometimes, yeah, right. The biz dev piece can be difficult for people, especially if it's not your thing. You want to be a writer. You don't want to be a salesperson necessarily. So sometimes there are organizations like WriterAccess and other online communities or staffing companies like Aquent that can actually help you get your foot in the door if that's something that's a challenge for you.
And do you think that people should be very realistic about that commitment in going to somebody like an Aquent if they want a full-time job or even a part-time freelance job? I mean, you need to really build your trust with that agent. Can you talk about that a little bit and the importance of that trusting relationship?
Yeah. Yes, I can very quickly.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's like they're a customer too. So anytime you're working with a WriterAccess or Aquent or any company like that, the way their clients view them is going to depend on the work that you do and deliver for them. So the more you deliver, the more valuable you are to them and the more valuable they seem to their clients. So I think it's critical if you're going to build any traction there that, you take it seriously. It's like a job, but it's also like an audition, and you're trying to put your best foot forward.
Excellent. Let's just talk about the finale here as we approach the gates.
Yeah.
Homework before the pitch. We talked about it a little bit, but let's just go through a quick checklist if we wouldn't mind. I can buzz through this if you want.
Yeah, because Byron, I'm actually, I'm on,
We'll wrap. We're going to wrap sooner than wrap. So here's a nice checklist. Have a look at it. But if you're not doing your homework, before you pick up the phone or have a first conversation with somebody, you may as well just forget the big buck contract. You need to look closely at what they're publishing and how it's performing with some of the tools that we mentioned. So, what are you waiting for? Let's get going. So, I don't know. This seems like a pretty cool conclusion, I think, to the whole thing, Matt. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, it is simple, but it does take work. So I'd say focus on what you do best. Focus on making your writing skills as strong as possible. Focus on specific niche or a special area expertise. And don't be afraid to get out there and meet people and let them know what you do.
Right on. Well, here's a quick reference to my book, everyone. I'm going to stay on the line in case anybody has any questions. I'll read them. You can pound them over. Matt may have to dive out.
Yeah, I got to jump.
Jump away.
All right,
Your big
thanks,
corporate
everybody.
equipment over there. Right
Yes.
on, Matt. Thanks for tuning in
Thank you so much.
today.
It was great. Thanks for the opportunity, Byron, and thanks you for folks for listening. You can follow me, Matt T. Grant, on Twitter, or get in touch with me, mgrant@aquint.com. Thanks a lot.
Matt, thank you. Take care.
All right, thanks. Bye, and ciao.
You. So if anybody has any questions, I'll happily take a look. Feel free to use your chat to get them into me, and I will hear your thoughts and respond. But it doesn't look like anybody's got any pressing questions that are tuning in, so we may wrap it up. There's a link to my book. Everyone's going to get an email link to this presentation as well. And you'll be able to hear a recording of this, pass it around and share it. You'll also get a link to download a free copy of this book, or right now you can go to writeraccess.com/writing skill guide to download a copy of this book, which is at the printer right now actually. But you'll get a PDF version of it, saving you the money to buy it online. But I hope everyone enjoyed the presentation. I would love to hear any feedback you might have on my Twitter account, at Byron White. That would be awesome. So without any further ado, I don't see any questions coming in, so I appreciate everybody joining me today. Until next month, I hope your life is a little, and your writing professional is a little smarter, better, faster, wiser. Thanks to this webinar. Thanks for tuning in, everyone.